Hello friends, welcome to ICANN initiatives of Insights IAS. In today's video, we are going to discuss about Personal Data Protection Bill. Okay, so why we are discussing this Personal Data Protection Bill? Recently, the Cabinet approved the Personal Data Protection Bill like 2 days back, and it is going to be introduced in the upcoming winter session of the or monsoon session of the Indian Parliament. Okay, monsoon session most probably it may not extend till winter, so most probably they will introduce this in the monsoon session. Personal Data Protection Bill. So regarding the Personal Data Protection Bill, first let us try to correlate with the syllabus. That is syllabus mapping. It is related to General Studies paper 2. That is rights, because this data is related to right to privacy, which was related to this Puttaswamy judgment, and it is also related to science and technology, how we are protecting the data and what kind of technologies you are using, and it is also related to individual rights. It is about syllabus mapping. In this video, what you can expect in this video here, why it is in news. Like I said earlier, Cabinet approved Digital Personal Data Protection Bill. Okay, so Digital Personal Data Protection Bill, it approved. We will discuss about the background of this and which commission was appointed. Then when that committee proposed the first draft, when it was amended, and why that first draft was replaced with the second bill. That all these things we will discuss, and why we made so many revisions to the particular bill also we will discuss. And then we will discuss about how the data protection laws are operating in other countries like Europe, USA, how operating, and some of the drawbacks in this bill. Okay, what experts are saying, that we will discuss in the end of this video. Okay, so before we start this video, you have to understand, students, there is a different type of data: public data and personal data. Here we are talking about only the personal data. An individual's personal data, it can be in the form of financial data, biometric data, or social data like data related to caste, religion, and any other relevant data. So this is about the personal data. Here we are discussing about personal data, which is in digital form. Digital Personal Data Protection Bill. Okay, now this is the various types of data. Next you have to understand about certain keywords. These keywords are, for example, okay, a person X given his details, his personal details to SBI when the person was opening a bank account. As a part of the KYC, know your customer, as a part of KYC, he given the details. The person who is giving the details, this person is known as data principal. This person is known as what? Data principal. A person who is giving the data. And a person who is taking the data, this person is known as data fiduciary. Data fiduciary. These terminologies are very important because these words very commonly come across when you are reading editorials related to this data protection bill. Person who is giving the data, data principal, and person who is taking the data, data fiduciary. Here SBI is the data fiduciary. He may process the data, or he may give that, or SBI may give the data to some other company like TCS. Here the TCS is a data processor who is processing the data of the data principal on behalf of the data fiduciary. Actually, data are different types: personal data, public data, and there is certain information that which is very crucial to government of India, such as, for example, information related to armed forces or information related to nuclear establishment. That type of information is known as what? Critical personal data or critical data. Okay, critical government data. And there is critical personal data is also there, such as through the data you can identify the individual particularly. That is a critical personal data. But here we are not discussing about the critical personal data. Here we are discussing about personal data in general, because this bill did not separate normal data as well as critical personal data. Okay, so this is the intro you have to understand, students, where we discussed about various types of data. Now the journey of this data protection bill, if you look at, so the Sri Krishna committee was appointed in 2018. It submitted its draft in 2019. In 2019, this winter session, the draft bill, the bill was introduced in the parliament, because of the demand from both the houses, the bill forwarded to the Joint Parliamentary Committee. Joint Parliamentary Committee in 2019. After that, due to COVID 2020 and 2021, due to COVID situations, the bill got delayed and they made certain suggestions. Along with the suggestions, the new bill was introduced in December 2021. But in 2022, government decided that they are withdrawing the old bill altogether and they decided to introduce the new bill. That was in November 2022. They introduced the draft Digital Personal Data Protection Bill. After they introduced the draft, they requested the opinion from the people. After taking inputs from the people, now they made few more changes. Those changes now approved by the cabinet. They are going to introduce this bill in upcoming monsoon session. So now this, whatever the bill we are talking about, this bill replaced the original bill which was introduced in the 2019. This is the journey of the personal data protection bill. Okay, here in examination point of view, you have to understand that Sri Krishna committee recommended the personal data protection bill, students. Okay, next, here why it is in news? It is in news because the Union Cabinet approved the Digital Personal Protection Data Bill 2022. Here one question to you, students. Tell me the word cabinet, whether this is present in the original constitution or not. Whether the word cabinet present in the original constitution or not. Original constitution, not present constitution. Tell me the answer. Okay. So this, what is the main objective of this bill? This bill is about how the personal data should be processed, and if someone is violating the Personal Data Protection Act, if it is passed, if someone is violating the Personal Data Protection Act, then what kind of actions you have to take. Here the major thing you have to understand, students, the difference between some of the challenges to this new bill. So some of the challenges, some of the challenges mainly, what are there? One is, this bill is not talking about any criminal trial. Criminal trial is not there. Previously, in the previous bill, old bill, if someone violating the personal data law, the person will prosecuted criminal action. Now, only in the present bill, only the monetary penalty is there. Only monetary penalty. Okay, that means you have to pay certain amount of the fine. That is one difference. And one more thing, students, one of the challenges in the new bill, they are suggesting that this personal data protection, this will be implemented by the Data Protection Board. Okay, Data Protection Board. So it is not that much autonomous, according to the expert, because these board members are appointed by the government, and it may not have a very autonomous regulatory authority. This is one more challenge here we can understand. Apart from these challenges, rest of the provisions are generally industry, even the industry is also welcoming the personal data protection, okay, bill. Now, if you go further details regarding this personal data protection bill, now we will see, are there any other related laws are there regarding the data? Yes. In India, there are 4 laws now in pending related to IT, information technology. One is the personal data protection bill. Apart from the personal data protection bill, there are 3 more which are in pending. They are Digital India bill. It is related to the IT Act. If the Digital India bill is passed, it will replace the IT Act. Next, Indian Telecommunication Bill 2022, and a policy for non-personal data governance. A policy for non-personal data governance. We are discussing about now digital personal data protection. This is about the non-personal data. So these are the 4 laws in news. Now they are in pending. Related to background information. Regarding the background information, we already discussed. It all started with the Puttaswamy case, where Supreme Court upheld that the right to privacy is also one of the fundamental rights under Article 21. They appointed the Sri Krishna committee and they submitted the draft. Then the draft was introduced in the Indian Parliament, Joint Parliamentary Committee. Later, after 2 years, in 2022, government decided to withdraw that, and now they introduced the modified one in the Parliament. After taking public opinion, now the final version, the final modified version, Cabinet cleared. Now they are going to introduce in the upcoming monsoon session. Why these many multiple revisions needed? Because government try to bring very comprehensive bill which covers both data principle as well as data fiduciary in a very effective manner. And they want to introduce a bill in conformity, okay, that means in support of the Supreme Court judgment. Okay, simply they want to take enough safeguards for the protection of individual data. That is the reason it took some time. So in your mains examination point of view, these important points, these are the 7 points this data protection bill mainly focused on. Number 1, the first point is personal data. It should be used only for the lawful purpose and it should be used only fair manner. It should not be used in unlawful manner. And when you are collecting data from any individual, you should be very transparent that how your data will be useful. First point, number 1. Second, it is only used for the purpose you collected for. For example, when you collected the information for the bank account opening, you should use that information only for the bank account. Okay, you should not sell that information to any political party. That is a thing. Second, third one is data minimization. That means try to collect as less information as possible, not to collect irrelevant information. Fourth one, the data must be collected in a very accurately. And if someone who given the data to you, like a previous example, when I given data to SBI, it is my responsibility if I change my data. For example, if I change my address, then I have to tell to the data fiduciary here, SBI, that I changed my address. Data fiduciary also, they have to keep updated that information. Okay, and the fifth principle is the data should not be stored unlimited period of time. It should be stored only for limited amount of the periods. For example, if you have account in Facebook and you don't want to use that account, you are deleting or you are deactivating the account, you don't want your information with the Facebook. So obviously, when you delete your account, all your information should be erased from the Facebook. This is an example only. That means our data should not be stored for unlimited period of time. Sixth one. The sixth one is the unauthorized data should not be there. That means the data should be collected only with the consent of the person as well as by following the rules of the Personal Data Protection Act. And the seventh one is who has to take the responsibility regarding the data misuse and everything. It is the one who are collecting the data. That means data fiduciary. Data fiduciary is the responsible one who has to protect the data against the misuse. These are the 7 overall. These are the 7 pointers regarding the data protection bill. Rest of the information. Already I told you what is the meaning of data principle and data fiduciary. Personal data means data through which you can identify the person. Data processor, I told you. Then what are the main objective? The main objective of this bill is, first one is to protect both data principle as well as data fiduciary. And one more thing is the individual rights of privacy and allowing the processing of personal data only for the lawful purpose. Applicable. This bill or this personal data protection bill is applicable to whom? It is applicable to both the data which is collected online as well as offline. Because don't get mistaken that this is the only applicable to digital personal data protection bill. Even though the data is collected offline, the data might be stored in online. So it applies to both online as well as offline collection of the data. It applicable to both India as well as the abroad. If Indian data is being processed by any company in abroad for the purpose of producing any goods to Indian people or service to Indian people, for example, you ordered a product from American websites, that means they are offering goods to you. At that point of time also, they have to process your data according to the personal data protection law. That means this law is also applicable to outside of India. That you have to understand, students. You have to take the consent rights regarding the data principle. That means if you are giving data, what are your rights? First thing is which personal data they are taking. You have to know that. Second, they have to take your consent. And third one is if you want to make any corrections to your personal data, they should allow. For example, like I said earlier, when you are changing your address or when you are changing mobile number, At that time, the data fiduciary, okay, who took the data from you, they should allow to correct your data. And you can nominate someone as for your information. For example, a person who is dying or a minor. So on behalf of those people, they can nominate someone in accord to protect their personal data. Here the most interesting thing is, in this personal data protection bill, they did not mention the right to forgotten. They did not mention the right to forgotten. Very, very important. Very, very important. So these are some of the things. Then what are the duties? Okay, when you are giving data, you have rights, but along with that, you have some duties also. Whenever you are giving data, you must give the data only the genuine data. You should not give false information, and you should not misuse this act. So these are some of the duties of the data principle. What about data fiduciaries? Already we discussed, they should not take data unlawfully, and they should be very transparent manner, and they should not misuse the data, and they should not store the data for more than required periods. These are some of the obligations on the data fiduciary. Next, can data transfer to abroad? Yes. Okay, except some blacklist countries. This law is going to, so according to this law, Government of India can blacklist certain countries. To that country, our information should not be forwarded. Rest of the countries, yes, information, Indians' information can be stored in other countries. Exemption. So who are not applicable under this data protection bill? Government mechanisms. If government is collecting data, for example, government want to implement Manrega scheme. When government is implementing any particular law policies, or when government is collecting the data for security and sovereignty purpose, at that time, this data protection bill will not apply. Even when court or any tribunal, for the purpose of processing their case, when they are dealing with the personal data, this is not applicable. Okay, when government is collecting data for law and order purpose, personal data protection is not applicable. So some of the critics, they are saying that government is exempted so many different situations. So that is the main purpose of, weakening of this law. This is some of the view taken by the critics. Next, so who will enforce, who will make sure? Data protection board will make sure this law is implemented properly. Here one of the criticism is, this personal data protection board is not given enough autonomy like RBI, SEBI. It is more or less directly controlled by Government of India. This is also one of the main criticism, students. But companies are welcoming that this new personal data protection bill, it did not contain any criminal actions. It is only mentioning about monetary penalty. Like if someone violated the personal data related to children, then the company will be penalized with 150 crores. If company violated if company unable to safely store the data, then the company faced with the 250 crores of the penalty. So the only thing is, you have to remember, there is no criminal action provision is there. Very, very important, students. So compared to the previous bill, what are the changes? In the previous bill, we mentioned that government will allow which country the data will be going. But now we changed that. Now government will allow any country, but only government will do certain countries. They will give a list of countries that for which the data should not go. That means previously, the previous bill, government will do the whitelisting of the country. That means they will give list of countries to which Indian data can go. Now they are going to do the blacklisting of the country. That means, blacklisting means there are certain countries to which Indians' data cannot be stored. Concerns around the bill. Already I explained about excessive control regarding this data protection board, and right to forgotten was not mentioned, and criminal action was not there. These are some of the concerns regarding the bill. Data protection in some other countries. In EU, they had this general data protection regulation in EU, and in US they have liberty protection. That is the name of the data protection laws. And Indian data protection bill, it is in the lines of the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development. It is in line with this proposal of UNO. What is the conclusion? The conclusion is, the data principles, whatever the data principles we are going to follow in the personal data protection bill, it must match the individual privacy as well as the country's security. So by maintaining that fine balance, we should go along in this particular data protection bill. Now the MCQ, based on last video. Which of the following observer members of the SCO? Answer is B students, 1 and 2. Afghanistan as well as Mongolia, these are the observer countries with respect to SCO. Then today's question. Today's question is, which of the following adopted a law on data protection and privacy for its region known as General Data Protection Regulation? That is GDPR related to Australia, Canada, European Union and the USA. Okay, it is related to which country or which organization? Mains question. Critically analyze the provisions of the data protection bill and mention the changes suggested by various committees on the data protection bill. So this is the mains question. As we are reaching to the end of this video, just we will do some quick revision regarding the data protection bill. So here we discussed about what is personal data, data principle, data fiduciary, and the journey of the data protection bill, and various features of the data protection bill, monetary penalties, and what are the changes compared to the previous bill we discussed, and concerns around this particular bill. Along with that, we have seen how other countries are performing with respect to data protection. So these are the issues we discussed in this video, and this is the detailed analysis on the personal data protection bill.